Hey everyone, welcome to the 275th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And you are in for an exciting show. I just moved, so I'm in a brand new studio that's a little unfinished, but you are going to hear all about moving. You're going to hear about a Google Smart Home event. You're also going to hear about an acquisition from Google, some interesting acquisitions happening in the fitness space, Amazon making its own acquisition, and a new chip from Qualcomm. Plus, we've got some news on new Wi-Fi 6 routers, Amazon going into space, a little bit of updates on Nest installations, some VR updates, and Kevin tested the Amazon Echo frames and is going to tell you whether or not you should spend $250 on them. And if you're worried that we have not included any industrial or enterprise news in this week's podcast, you are wrong. Stay tuned because we have Q Delara, who is president and CEO of Honeywell Connected Enterprise, who's going to be discussing the big deal they signed around real estate and using connectivity in real estate to meet financial goals. So we're going to be talking about all of this, and you're going to hear from our sponsor, Very. 2 times, in fact. All right, so let's get to it. Let's hear our first ad from Very. Are you looking for an IoT development team who's been there, done that? Very's award-winning full-service IoT development firm will work with you to deliver your IoT solution on time and on budget. Learn more at www.verypossible.com. That's www.verypossible.com. Okay, Kevin. So this weekend, I moved, and yet here I am in my...
Yay!
Yeah, I'm like, it's a little crazy over here. I still haven't installed all my soundproofing, so the sound of this week's show, and maybe even next week's until a rug comes in, is going to be a little different than you're used to. But then it should get better. But as part of this move, I am so excited because I've been renting for the last year, and I now get to be able to install all kinds of crazy gadgets that I've been putting off.
I'm actually happier about that than you are, I have a feeling.
Oh, Kevin has had to do some of these reviews, and he's like, oh.
No, I don't mind them. It's just I have to deal with an HOA, so I can't do a lot of the outdoor stuff. And I just don't have the freedom that you have. So I'm excited. Trust me, I am.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most excited about is I'm going to get one of the, getting an electrician out to put in electricity under my sink. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to install a leak detection monitor. Finn has one, and so does Flow, which is, they've got a partnership with Moen, so it's Flow by Moen. But I want to install those and see how these measure up. And the idea is you install it under your sink, and it will tell you when the water flow inside your house changes, and that signifies that there could be a leak. And this is an old house, so I fully expect leaks. I shouldn't say that, but it's probably true. And then this was today's purchase, is I needed to buy a video doorbell because, well, I needed to buy a doorbell, and I figured I should buy a video doorbell.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, this house had a Vivint security system, so they actually had the Vivint video doorbell, but I don't want to pay for the Vivint service. Sorry, Vivint. And but it was actually a really good doorbell. I'm sad that I cannot use it. And so what I did is I went and tried to figure out what doorbell I wanted. And I thought I'd share this with you because this is the line of thinking that I think is probably most useful. So first up, I said, okay, do I care if this works with Amazon or Google? For me, it doesn't matter because we have both sets of devices in the house. I was leaning more towards Google simply because they have people recognition. So it will actually be able to tell you on your Nest and all of your Nest devices, so-and-so is at the door if it recognizes the person. And I thought that would be kind of fun, right? Mm-hmm. But quickly killed that because Nest requires me for their video doorbell to be even remotely functional to have a $6 a month subscription. Plus, it's like the $230 doorbell. And that just, my husband didn't want to pay for a subscription. And it was like too rich for my blood. Plus, we only have that one camera. And Nest recently changed their subscription plan, so it'd be like $6 a month for one camera. And I think you pay $6 a month, but you've got multiple cameras?
So I have the old plan, so I actually don't pay anything right now, but I only get 3 hours of video clips as well as the live feed. So I'm kind of grandfathered until I switch the plan, which I probably never will. So you're right. If the new plan, it's $6 for your one video doorbell or one camera or whatever, and then $10, it covers your whole home of Nest cameras. But I don't know if you even want cameras.
I don't. So I was like, too much. So I killed that. We looked at the Ring, killed that because I really don't feel comfortable with the idea of my doorbell data possibly getting shared with the police. I don't feel secure about that anymore. So
right.
I didn't want to be part of that. Killed Ring, which brings me down into, they're not really second tier doorbells, but they're less common. And I went to the Wirecutter. I used to write their doorbell reviews. Now I'm doing my own thing, but I trust them still. They actually recommended the Arlo. And I have Arlo video cameras, and I already have the Arlo little hub. So I was like, oh, and this is about $150 doorbell. Looked really good. It does have a $3 a month subscription for kind of basic cloud storage. So I could see the videos, beyond like a few hours after they happen. And they had some like fine grade motion detection as part of that subscription that looked good. And $3 isn't a lot. But my husband was like, no subscriptions. We have too many.
Yeah.
So then I went to the Eufy doorbell, and I think this is going to work out because we don't have a doorbell chime inside the house actually that works. So this comes with its own chime. It is $130. Its image quality is fine, but it's not like 4K or anything super great. But I'm okay with that because it's a doorbell. Yeah, it's going to be more expensive than just installing a doorbell plus a doorbell chime, but it's not that much more expensive. And I'll have video access. It does local recording. My husband pointed out, he's like, well, with local recording, if someone steals your doorbell, they steal your recording. I was like, that is the definition of local recording.
That's how it works.
August actually had a doorbell that saved your video recordings for a little bit longer than most of them did. It had a pretty generous non-subscription option, but we had an August doorbell the last time, and he was so burnt on that he didn't want to do it again. So Eufy it is. I'll let you know how it works. And yeah.
I'm surprised that none of the smart home hub makers have leveraged the local storage in there just to store camera footage, because then nobody could steal your footage because the hub is in your house, right?
Maybe we'll hear more about that at an event coming up that has a small segment on local development and not storage, but just local hub access. What do you think?
I know which event you're talking about.
Is it perchance Google?
It is. Since there's no Google I/O, they're kind of splitting out all these, I'll call them sections or markets of events into different things. Today, they had their web developer event start. Next week, they had the Google Smart Home event. So on July the 8th, which is, of course, the day we record this show, it's a Wednesday.
We're going to arrange, though, that we're going to
either get up in the middle of the night, or they're having it 3 different times around the world. So we'll catch the first one, so that way we can talk about it on the show.
Yes. So at the event, just so you guys can be excited and maybe join in, the first big keynote is going to be Michelle Turner, who's in charge of their Nest stuff. She, I believe, has been on the show, and she's just going to do the overview. I'd like to hear her talk about what's happening with Project Chip. Personally, they said they would do that with Apple and Amazon, and this is connected home over IP. This is going to try to create a standard for the smart home. They announced this back in December, and we haven't heard much since, so maybe we'll hear something. That's my hope.
It got a passing mention last week at WWDC, since Apple is involved with that as well.
Yeah, it did. So maybe we'll get more than a passing mention?
That would be nice.
Yeah. They're also going to be talking to their partners or having their partner things. And they, in the segment that announces this, I don't know if they're just doing some weird googly name change thing, or they're just not paying attention to their branding, but they're calling it Works with Hey Google, which is not Google Assistant, which is what they said they were changing their with Nest to works with Google Assistant to. So,
and I can tell you from working at Google, this is not a mistake. They do not mess up their branding. This is probably legit that this is the name. Works with AG. So I don't want to set everybody's machines off.
Sorry about
very
that.
likely that's you didn't turn. I had my mic off, so you didn't mess with mine. There's no way that they made a mistake. They have so many people review these things for branding that this is legit.
All right. So hopefully they'll also address their, I'm going to call it disastrous transition from works with Nest to works with Google Assistant and possibly now to works with Hey Google. Oh, I did it again, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm sleep deprived. Sorry. I won't do it anymore. Hopefully we'll learn more about that. Also on the schedule that's exciting is they've got something on local. So a developer session on using local storage or local SDK. That's it. That's
a developer session. So that way its partners, the works with HeyG partners can implement local processing of actions when possible. It will then backfill to the cloud if it can't do local. But this is huge. This is huge because it should mean less latency, so faster response time for your devices when you say your commands, and less of your voice recordings actually going up to the cloud to do with whatever Google does with it.
Yay! And then the other thing that I thought was exciting is they've got a segment or a session on working with offline devices and tracking state, which I think is super important. And if you do too, you just don't realize it because things like when your power goes out and your light bulbs used to be off because it's the middle of the night when the hub can maintain that. And when the power comes back on, they can revert back to the old state as opposed to turning on again. So, little things.
Like a smart home actually being smart.
Yeah. And Google also made some other news this week, but I don't think we're going to hear much about it at this event, but let's talk about it. Google's made an acquisition.
They did. We don't know for how much. I don't think it was for a lot of money in relative terms, but they purchased North, which used to be Thalmic Labs. Thalmic was formed in 2012 and had that funky Mayo armband wearable that supported gestures for interacting with devices. That really never took off, and North, roughly 2 years ago, Thalmic Labs pivoted 2 years ago and became North and got into smart glasses. They delivered the Focals 1.0 glasses. They planned to do a second version. However, they are not going to be shipping Focals 2.0 as a result of this acquisition, and they're going to wind down Focals 1.0. So if you have those, join the crowd, people like me who still own dead products like Google Glass. I presume those are not going to work much longer. We don't have any details on it because this just happened and it's just a very generic, hey, we were bought and here's what's going on. What does this mean? It fits into Google's hardware division because it's Rick Osterloh's group that is the North folks are going to be under. And in the blog post that Rick posted, they mentioned ambient computing no less than 4 times. So that's what this is about. But I wonder what form it will take. Is it going to be another glasses type product or what that Google's thinking here?
Yeah. And, remember all the way back when Thalmic Labs launched and we were talking about the Mayo? I don't know if you recall this, but we actually had them on the podcast and I was excited because I wanted to do a smart home that had gesture controls. What Thalmic Labs eventually produced was the band that actually the only use case that I could test when they let me test it was fast forwarding through my slides on a PowerPoint thing, which was, not as exciting as the disco arm movement I wanted to set off party mode in my house.
You don't do that in your house every day? I mean, I slide through PowerPoints all the time.
You're like, here's your options for dinner tonight, ladies. Steak, mac and cheese. No, you can't see me doing the gesture, but it's very big and exciting.
She's doing it. Trust me.
Exactly. Okay, so I feel like we should talk about a couple things here. Ambient computing really, this is big because Apple actually, there was a rumor, and this is not real yet, but the rumor is that they're working on glasses for ambient computing. And we also have Kevin. We're going to talk about his experience with the Amazon Echo frames, which are sort of ambient computing. But
they are. I'm wearing them right now. I feel very ambient.
Yeah. He's just around. He's just here. So the idea here is it's multifold. Here we go. It's that having some sort of device on your face that's a wearable, it takes it and because wearables are highly personal, I feel like you need more than just the option of a watch, right? Not everybody wants to wear a watch, but having something that can give you information that's highly personal and in this case could tell where you're looking perhaps could really,
contextual.
Yeah, it gives something more context. Cause like if I'm saying turn on the light at a basic level, like today we're at turn on living room light, right? We could just walk into a room like Google. I know if it knows I'm in a room, it will actually turn on the lights in the room that I'm shouting at the display in, right? So that's getting there. If I am looking actually at a lamp though in a room and I say turn on this light with something like a glasses or a super personal having like highly accurate location context, it could actually turn on the lamp that I'm looking at. And that's pretty awesome.
That solves the problem of having to set up groups of lamps in different rooms, remembering the name of the group or remembering the name of the lamp. And it sounds silly, but as you start adding lots and lots of bulbs and such, remembering the names, it's like I'm lucky I remember my kids' 2 names, it's crazy. This also reminds me that last week we spoke about Apple's UWB or ultra wideband chip, and they plan to use it for location, but also not just location, even the way you are facing, your direction. And I'm not saying that that's what Google is going to do, but that's a way you could implement the vision that you just put out there.
Exactly. So very exciting. Let's keep an eye on this. Hopefully it's not just 2 eyes.
4 eyes in my case, but yes.
Yes. There's another acquisition, probably not as ambient computing exciting, but really exciting for people. I feel like we should have covered this market more. The at-home fitness market. Kevin, what happened?
So this kind of surprised me because it came out of nowhere. We've talked about Mirror before, which is the fitness mirror that also has a display built in the mirror to show you how to do your workouts and so on. And it can adjust the workouts based on what it sees, if you're struggling with a lot of weight and so on. So neat product, expensive for my taste. So I've not tested one, nor have I used one, nor have I bought one. Lululemon just bought Mirror this week for $500 million.
Man, they must think there's a Peloton hidden in there.
That's got to be part of it because I don't recall the price of it. The Mirror has a subscription fee. Lululemon doesn't have subscription fees for its
incredibly pricey
gear.
Clothing.
Right, yeah. No, they make it all up front. So this potentially changes their business model to get into the services and subscription-based revenue streams. I didn't see it coming because I don't think of them as a tech company, Lululemon, even though, yes, their clothing is very technically designed. So what do you think? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, this is something I'm excited about, in part because I'm planning a whole new virtual event around it for the end of this month. Stay tuned for more on that. This was not just a marketing segue. I have this theory, and it's not just mine, but remember how Mark Andreessen a couple years ago was like, hey, software is eating the world. And what he meant by that is basically every product that used to be hardware focused was actually the software was more important than the hardware itself. Because the software was constantly changing, you add new features, etc. My theory is software may still be eating the world, but an internet connection is eating the software part of the world. I don't know. The idea is once you add connectivity to a product, we've talked about this forever. It changes the nature of what a product is. It changes the nature of your relationship with the customer. And we haven't really started thinking about what it means when everything is connected. And so what it kind of means is that you're no longer delivering that hardware or that software. You're delivering a service. And that's what Lululemon realized very quickly. Maybe not as quickly as Peloton, but that's what they realized they needed. They needed a service because everything is connected now. Because it's no longer just software eating the world. It's connectivity. And so that's why I'm excited about this. It doesn't mean that they're going to do a great job with this, but at least they're making what I think is a smart business move. And every business should be asking themselves, how do I turn what I do today into a compelling service? I find this ironic because I refuse to buy a $3 a month subscription to a doorbell service, but that is one of the challenges here. So, okay.
You might be excited about this because you're going to get a lot of value out of it. You're going to use it for an hour a day, et cetera, maybe I understand why you might pay a subscription for this. I didn't realize, this is going to sound silly, I didn't realize this company actually sold menswear.
Oh, yeah, they got into that a while back.
The girls, they buy the clothing all the time. It's very nice. I've been in the stores with them, but I just never paid attention to menswear. I'm really curious how many people who use the mirror that are male versus female. And I wonder, even though they sell men's clothing, I think they probably sell a lot more women's clothing. Yes?
Yeah, probably.
Probably. I wonder if more women were actually using the mirror to make this an even better fit, but we don't have that information.
I don't know. I kind of wanted a mirror, I'll be honest. All of these, yeah, but I'm not buying one. I'm not buying one.
Stacey's getting a mirror.
Nope. I didn't do the Peloton because I don't really love cardio, and I've done spin, but it's not like that thrilling. But I do lift weights, so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
No more. I bought a house. I'm not buying a mirror. Okay. Amazon. They also made an acquisition. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but they bought self-driving tech company Zoox. We heard about this. This was rumored. Now they confirmed that this is happening. It was $1 billion?
1.2.
1.2 billion.
That's reported. That the Financial Times previously reported that it would be 1.2. The terms, however, were not disclosed.
Got it. And, Kevin, Amazon's got to deliver a bunch of stuff. It makes sense that they would want to be in self-driving. Plus, it feels like, everybody's in self-driving, so they might as well be into it too.
Well, yeah. When you say deliver a bunch of stuff, they've been at my house 3 times already this week, and they have people dropping off these packages. I don't really think it's for that. I suspect this is more about Whole Foods, delivering groceries.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, I can see that. But, it feels like they really haven't done much with Whole Foods. They made that was their largest acquisition to date at the time. It was like $13-point-something billion.
13.7.
Yeah, they haven't done much with it. I don't know. Okay, we're not going to talk a lot about this because we'll never get through the show. So Qualcomm, new chip for wearables. Can we just say finally?
Yeah, we better say finally, because what this is meant to replace is the old Snapdragon Wear 3100 chip, which is in Android Wear watches. This is the new 4100 Plus and 4100. I presume it's mainly for, again, Android Wear. So the Android people are probably saying, yay. But to be honest, this is still some older chip tech, and that's one of the issues with Android Wear wearables. So I don't know that this is going to give Google and its partners the big push with Android Wear that they need. Part of the problem is hardware, yes. The other part is software. It's too clunky. It's not as intuitive as Apple Watch or WatchOS, I should say. But it is good news. Not as good as it could be, in my opinion.
Yeah, and who knows what's going to happen with Android Wear after the Google Fitbit acquisition.
Exactly.
Speaking of turning something into a service, that would be kind of brilliant if that could happen. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along. Some news bits. Netgear. Remember, we've talked about Netgear Orbi routers. They're freaking amazing. Their new Wi-Fi 6 stuff is great, but so pricey. It's about $700 for a pack of 2. It will cover 5,000 square feet. But Netgear just announced new Orbi routers, a mid-band, mid-tier price range. For $450, you get 2 of the new AX4200s. And these are slightly slower than the 6000s, but still, they look good.
Yeah, you get Wi-Fi 6. So, and as we said, if you're going to get a new router, look for Wi-Fi 6, even though not all of your client devices will work with it yet. Eventually, new devices will. Works backwards compatibly with Wi-Fi 5, your current devices. Yeah, this is big because it's so much less than the high-end one, which is that like $700?
It's $700, and basically you get one fewer port, so one less port on this one, and it's a little slower, but most of us probably won't notice that.
Probably not.
Yeah, so, this is a nice option out there, and, the Orbis are good. I have tested them. Those things will blast Wi-Fi all over your house. Okay, Amazon. Their AWS, Amazon Web Services, they are announcing a new space-centric service. It is the Aerospace and Satellite Solutions portfolio, which creates a somewhat unfortunate acronym. So we won't talk about that. We'll just talk about what this is. Basically, with the creation of CubeSats and nanosats, cheaper satellites, there is this gold rush for the space. And people are sending stuff for, You've got Starlink, which is Elon Musk's broadband satellite service that is going to launch like 40,000 something satellites up into space. So there's two components to this. One is cheaper, smaller satellites. The other is actually Elon Musk's, one of his other businesses, SpaceX. You've got cheaper launch options out there. So it used to be like several $100 million to launch a satellite because there was only a couple, Boeing and I think one other company launching them. But now you've got, SpaceX is like, we'll just fling up a couple thousand, every year. Just send them on up. So basically the costs are going down on both the equipment that's in space and the ability to get stuff into space. And that means people are very excited. We're seeing lots of satellite IoT companies launch, and Amazon is getting into this. They announced something, I think it was a beta, but it was called
Ground Station?
Ground Station. Yes, Ground Station. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was called Ground Station. And this is an important component to any satellite network. You need things on the ground that actually receive the signals from space and then send them out over terrestrial broadband. And that's what Ground Station is going to do. So that's part of the service. There are other things. And I kind of think of this as the most outer edge of the universe, right? We talk about edge computing. This is like the edge in space. So we're just this isn't a huge deal today, but I think it's going to be interesting to follow going forward. So,
yeah.
Other news bits from Nest?
Yeah, if you did buy a Nest Hello doorbell, which you didn't, you bought the Eufy. If you didn't want to install it, you can now add professional installation to your Nest order. And not just for the video doorbell, but for the thermostats, cameras, your mesh Wi-Fi, your Nest by Yale lock, which is what I have, the Nest Secure Alarm System, and Nest Protect smoke alarms. Basically, it's $99 to have somebody install any of those, except for the Nest Secure Alarm System. That is $119. So they're kind of taking a page out of, I guess, Amazon and Best Buy here and pairing you up with installers that can, just take care of everything for you.
Yeah, it's a shame that, there's not an independent company I could pay $99 and give them all my gadgets and be like, make them go.
Well,
I did just install it.
$100
Yeah.
If you want.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I'll fly you out here. All right. VR news. Man, VR is the consumer market for this is not great. What's happening, Kevin?
No. So many have tried and few have succeeded with VR in the consumer space. Samsung is the latest. They're done with VR video, according to protocol. They were providing 360-degree videos from news sources like CNN, the New York Times, and other VR app stores and such. And they're not doing that anymore. And in fact, just a week before this, Facebook stopped selling the Oculus Go headset, which was their 360-degree video headset. And even before that, just last month, Hulu said it's shutting down its VR video app. So everybody's getting out of VR, apparently, on the consumer side. Sort of. It seems like those who are still interested in VR are not thrilled with the 360-degree videos, but want the full 6 DOF or 6 degrees of freedom. So that way you can use sensors in the device to lean into a video or move around and have the video pan and such. So it's a little more immersive. I don't think that's what's holding VR back, but hey, that's just me. So,
and remember, in the industrial and enterprise space, VR is still happening.
Yeah, that's a different story. Yes, absolutely. AR probably more than VR, but yes.
Yeah, AR more than VR, but yes. Okay, I was about to say it's all about the heads-up display. And speaking of heads-up display, Kevin's. Yeah, I know. Wasn't that a great segue? I was so impressed with myself.
Except the Amazon Echo frames aren't really a heads-up display. They are just frames that have microphones, sensors, and speakers. There's no camera.
That's right.
Yeah, there's no display,
Okay.
but that's okay. That's okay. It's still a good
All
segue.
Right. Bad segue. Wah, wah.
All right, I'll beat you halfway. They do have little LEDs that only I can see. People outside, not wearing these, can't see the LEDs. The LEDs light up for when I ask Madam A a question or if I mute my microphone and so on. But essentially, Echo frames. So we have these as part of the invite process that Amazon has. We didn't get them because they're special. We didn't get them because we're the IoT podcast. We paid $179 for them. They will retail for $250 once they are generally available, but anybody can apply to get these. So what are they? They are glasses frames that actually look like glasses frames, but they, as I said, they have sensors, the battery, Bluetooth, speakers, and a microphone in them. And basically, they put Madam A on your face. Nobody would even know because other than the slightly thicker than normal arms on the glasses, where all the internals are, they look kind of like my dorky glasses that I wear every day. So
They look exactly like his Warby Parker glasses.
they do, which to me is a good thing. But if you want to put a Band-Aid in the middle of the temple, you would look like a dork. So I'm kind of frustrated by them. Let me tell you what I like and what they do. As I said, they put Madam A on your face. So she's always listening, although you can mute the microphone. So all I need to do is, while I'm wearing these, I need to say, Madam A, what's the weather, or what's my next appointment, etc. And the microphones pick that up, and immediately I get my response. They do need to be Bluetooth paired to your phone, which has to have the Madam A app. So these are not standalone glasses in terms of the smarts. You still have to carry your phone. The phone's doing all of the processing. So to me, that's a bit of a limitation, but okay.
That helps with battery life and the price tag, though.
Well, let's talk about battery life, shall we? Amazon has given a battery life, like basically a range. Basically, they say you can get through about a 14-hour day if you have, say, 30 minutes of phone calls, because it's a Bluetooth headset. You can take phone calls with them. Maybe 40 notifications from your phone, and listen to music from your phone for about 45 minutes. I've tested this every which way. Like, I just listened to music one day because they said it should last 3 hours if you do nothing but listen to music on these. And that's about right. I actually got a little bit more. I got about 3.5 hours. You can get through a day, but it's so dependent on what you use it for, or how many notifications you get, which you don't have control over, or how many phone calls you get and take on it, which you have some control over. So the battery life is surprisingly low to me, because I would think, I have smartwatches that go for 2 full days and they have smaller batteries. So I'm not sure what the deal is there. Regardless, it also has a proprietary magnetic charger. It's a nice charger. It's kind of like fabric wrapped and all that, but yeah, you need it. So you might need a second one, because if you run out of juice at work, you're going to have your charger with you. And I'm not too keen on proprietary chargers, so that's a whole other thing. They charge up relatively quickly, about an hour to an hour and a half. But if you're going to use them a lot, I think you're going to struggle to get through a day. The gestures are very easy to use because there's a touch panel on the right side, so I can tap it to take a phone call or swipe to dismiss. It works fine sound-wise for phone calls. Nobody knows I'm on a smart frame, smart glasses. Music is just okay. The speakers, there are 2 each next to each of your ears, but they don't go in your ear. They're just kind of piping sound through the air. So it's very tinny, not a lot of bass. It's adequate at best, I would say, for listening to music, just for passive listening. The nice thing is there's nothing else in your ears, so you can hear the world around you, which I think is good. I guess I'm frustrated because I don't know if they're worth $250. I don't think they are for me. I can say that already, because I don't rely on Madam A for much day to day. If you do, yeah, my house is built on Google right now, so, okay. But if you do, even if you do, you still have to carry your phone with you. You could use the Madam A app on your phone to do pretty much all the same stuff. So paying $250 for this kind of has me scratching my head. I'm not saying don't buy it, because it does what it says it can do. But you could go get a Fitbit Versa 2 for less than this and have a tracker that captures health data, which this does not, and has a 6-day battery life, which this does not. I'm wondering if it's worth the value, worth the price.
So I've known Kevin for 12 years, and this is probably the most ambivalent review I've heard from him. The only other thing I've heard that he didn't like as much was IntelliThings. So I'm going to say, so far, not worth it on these, which is surprising because I was really excited, but...
Well, you're going to have to think long and hard about spending $250 for these, I think, because really the phone app replicates a lot of this, and you need your phone with you anyway. So do you really want this next thing to charge and worry about?
Yeah, and I was very disappointed with the Amazon Auto experience, which also linked Amazon to my phone. The Bluetooth connectivity was just off and wacky, and I don't really trust Amazon's hardware team on these Bluetooth to phone connections much yet.
I will say this. I have not had any Bluetooth issues with this. So the Echo Auto, whatever issues you had there, maybe this is a different chipset, maybe they've just refined the software, it's been fine. I just don't see a lot of value because it doesn't really add anything much to the experience.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Kevin. We'll keep you updated as more things happen on these frames, if they happen. Maybe it'll be yet another dead pair of glasses in your home. Haha. You can open a museum by the end of all of this. That's about it on the news front. Let's take a moment to visit with our Internet of Things podcast hotline. This week's hotline is brought to you by Schlage. The best home automation adds convenience, not hassle. With its built-in Wi-Fi, the Schlage Encode's smart Wi-Fi deadbolt shows you just how easy secure can be. Learn more at schlage.com. Actually, side note, that is one of the products I am installing in the new house. Woo! Okay. This week is also the end of the month, which means we've selected a winner for the June drawing, which was for a Schlage lock. And our winner is Scott. Dun, dun, dun. And Scott was actually our question last week, so you guys even know who Scott is too. All right. This week, we have a question from Brad, and I was kind of like, Brad, are you serious?
He's serious. I had the same question
he's serious.
6 months ago.
Yeah, and a lot of people do actually ask me this question, so let's hear it.
My question is pretty simple. Why would I ever want my lights to change color? I have a number of smart lights, but they're all white. So I'd love a long list. Thanks.
All right, Brad, my enthusiasm for colored lights has not won you over yet. And I liked how you asked us for a long list. Like a short list was not going to suffice for you. So I am going to tell you, in my quest for ambient information, I love colored lights in a service like IFT or Zapier, how do you say it?
Zapier is how I say it, but I don't know if that's correct.
I always say these things wrong. But anyway, some sort of connective tissue that links your lights to a service. And the reason I like that is because I use the colored bulbs as an ambient information delivery service, which in my closet, for example, I had it set so if the temperature was below 35 degrees, which in my world is just too cold, it would turn blue. And I had it do that so I knew how to get dressed in the morning.
You mean the temperature outside, not the temperature in your closet? Yes. Okay, good.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
The temperature in my closet is always around 68, 70 degrees. So that was one. But we also did it, for example, I hooked up something this was a long time ago, but my daughter had tried out for a play and she was waiting to hear if she got cast. And the director was not emailing us. And so we were very eagerly awaiting it. So I set up a notice. So when I got an email from this particular person, my lights would flash green. And thus, wherever we were in the house, when that email came in, boom, our lights turned color. And that was awesome. And she appreciated that. And then I turned it off for that. I also had what I called the bat phone for my editor. And if he texted me from his number, all the lights in my house would flash red. And that meant I needed to get my butt to the computer because I had breaking news to cover. So that allowed me to work away from my computer. And then my husband, because he likes to entertain and watch sports, this was pre-COVID, we actually set up something for when his team scored a point. I can't remember if it was the Cardinals baseball or something else, the St. Louis Blues hockey. But basically when his team scored a point or a goal or whatever, the lights would flash in celebration. And that had too much latency at the time for it to be really effective. The other ones were great, but that one was less great. So that's just 4 things that I did, some of which were slightly more practical than others that involved colored lights. Could you toggle a light switch on and off? Yes. So here's some totally awesome functional versions. Link them to your smoke detector. Nest used to let you do this. It'd be a little iffier now, but you can still do it. And your lights turn red when your smoke detector goes off because it's easier to actually see in a red lit environment if it's smoky. So white lights in a smoky room, low visibility. Red lights, actually higher visibility. You could do the same thing actually for nighttime because a redder light is easier on your eyes than a traditional yellow or blue light. So that's super functional.
I have to say, I was in the same camp as Brad for a long time. And you kind of convinced me that color lights are the bomb. Even though I had used them for certain things. Ambient notifications, as you said, you're talking about tying them into services very easily with maybe if this and that and so on. I've actually created some really small bits of code in Python where if the price of Bitcoin is up or down, my lights in my office will go green or red, for example. Or for a school project, we had somebody's insulin monitor. When that person's blood sugar was high or low, we would have the lights go on and go off. I mean, that was a little more complicated, but you can actually do a lot on your own, even without the off-the-shelf services, I guess is what I'll say. So that's kind of cool. There's also the entertainment factor. And I have to mention, because you bought...
This is how I got Kevin.
This is how she got me. Stacy, for Christmas, bought me the Philips Hue sync box that works with play bars. I got play bar lights, which are Philips Hue oblong LED lights, color, 16 million colors or whatever it is. But the sync box is an HDMI splitter. Basically, you can take any content over HDMI, any video content. So maybe a set-top box, an Apple TV, Android TV, a PC for gaming. And you can then hook that up to the sync box, and the sync box will synchronize the lighting in your room to match and highlight colors on the TV for a movie, for a game. So when there's an explosion in the movie, for example, like the whole room in sync just lights up with these flames, colors, and it's awesome. It's fantastic. So yeah, there's a lot of cool smart home bits, but just the entertainment factors there in many different scenarios as well.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the power of fun holiday lighting or just simply like turning your lights in your home a lighter, like a slight rosy tint. Everyone looks good under pink lights. There's a reason why when people want a romantic atmosphere, they cover it with like a pink scarf because everyone looks younger and better. And so dinner party lighting should always have a hint of pink so people look a little bit better.
You can have white bulbs that are tunable to kind of get a little bit of a different vibe as well. Or maybe something's better for reading to have like a daylight temperature versus a soft white or vice versa. So you could get started with just tunable bulbs. But if you want to go hog wild, Stacy won me over, Brad. I don't know what to tell you.
Go hog wild, Brad. You can do it. Okay. So that's the answer. Remember, we do a monthly drawing. So next month, you will be entered to win a smart dry laundry alert system. So if you call in July, you will be entered to win. Basically, this is a device that will tell you if the clothes in your dryer are dry. It will help you save on energy, and it also helps you avoid trips to the dryer. And it actually helped me avoid shrinking some of my nicer clothing because the temperature was getting too hot. So that is next month's prize. If you want to be entered to win, just give us a call at 512-623-7424. And even if you don't want to win, you can call us and ask us a question, and maybe we'll answer it on the show. That concludes this segment of the podcast. Please stay tuned next for Q Delara, who is president and CEO of Honeywell Connected Enterprise. She's going to be talking about, yes, the convergence of OT and IT, and also how the heck these great big deals between OT companies and IT companies get done. It's fun, so stay tuned for that. But now, a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Very. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Very. Very is a fully distributed IoT engineering firm partnering with clients to build systems for smart manufacturing, smart energy and utilities, consumer electronics, and connected wellness. And today I have Ben Wald, who is the founder and head of client strategy at Very, here to talk to me. So Ben very often works with industrial clients on IoT projects. Can you tell us about how you are helping them?
Absolutely. So manufacturers who have the ability to do remote monitoring and predictive maintenance on their machines have a competitive advantage. Study after study shows that these capabilities help companies shift away from time-based and scheduled maintenance, more efficiently utilize their consumables and their workforce in general, increase productivity, maximize machine and part life, improve workplace safety, and ultimately reduce unplanned downtime.
Excellent. So what does Very actually do or build with clients?
That is a great question. So we build custom solutions. In many cases, we're working with companies who actually build the equipment and help them add more value to their machines, maybe create visibility that they didn't have before, and sometimes even open up new revenue streams. So getting tactical, we help these equipment manufacturers build devices to retrofit existing equipment with new capabilities, send data to the cloud, and use the right machine learning models to find patterns, highlight anomalies, and capture insights from the operators on the ground. That's typically the critical step here, is pairing software with human intelligence. And it's really where a lot of quote unquote universal solutions fail. The next step is the last mile element, where we are taking these insights and integrating with existing systems that are handling the maintenance scheduling and some of the consumable ordering. As a quick example, we recently built and launched a device that both retrofits to older models and comes embedded with newer machines in the corrugation industry. It collects and sends over 2,000 data points from the machine to the cloud, and our machine learning model looks for anomalies outside of some predefined thresholds. We then allow and have created an interface for operators to label those events, which means the system gets smarter each day. The last mile is that we've then integrated this platform into their maintenance scheduling system, their consumable ordering platform, and their CRM, so that if they get a support request, the company can have insights into what may have led to that component failing, and on the maintenance side, only perform maintenance when it's necessary.
That sounds really comprehensive. So where do I go to learn more about how Very can help me with my industrial IoT project?
You can reach out to us at verypossible.com/Stacy. That's VERY possible.com/STACEY.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Q Dallara, who is president and CEO of Honeywell Connected Enterprise. Hello, Q. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm excellent. How are you?
Excellent. All right. So we're here today to talk about I'm going to call it a really big deal between Honeywell and SAP that happened earlier this month. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about what happened?
Certainly. Well, SAP and Honeywell announced a broad partnership, starting with real estate operations. But the basic idea is, how do we bring financial data that SAP is so good at and operational data that Honeywell is so good at in order to provide much better business insight for CFOs and COOs to make decisions around their operations? That's the basic construct.
And this focus is on commercial buildings so far, or is it commercial buildings only?
We're starting off with the first real combined application in real estate operations, but I would say that what we're really trying to tackle is the perennial problem of productivity. Companies have wanted productivity since God was a boy, and it's been difficult for a lot of companies to achieve this because it's been hard to get data out of the operational system. In the last 20 years with the IT industry, got a lot better of extracting and measuring financial and business data, but not the OT side. And so with this partnership, we take one step forward in being able to combine that around real estate. And I can go through some examples of why we picked real estate to start with, but it's the beginning. And our vision for this is that we'll look at another industry vertical, another part of the operational world, and provide the same thing in that domain.
So Honeywell has a presence in about 25% of the world's buildings. That is a lot. Talk to me about what you hope to do here. I mean, a lot of things happen in buildings. There's fire safety, there's reserving conference rooms. What are the things that this partnership is actually going to touch on?
If we just focus on real estate operations for a moment, the funny thing is, if you talk to a CFO, the cost of maintaining and optimizing a company's real estate portfolio, for example, Honeywell has over 1,000 buildings of our own in our portfolio. The cost for this is hidden in a bunch of different parts of the P&L, and it's not visible at all. So yes, does the ERP system account for it? Sure, it does, but we don't know what it is, and it's in lots of places. So if I just look at our company, Honeywell, it's probably several hundreds of millions of dollars of energy spend, facilities management, you name it, a lot of people, and we don't really know whether we're doing a good job managing this. And in this COVID world where everyone's trying to drive out costs and be a lot more productive, we're actually going to help provide that visibility from how the buildings are run, how much energy you're using, and, lifting that up so that it's much more visible to a CFO. And then we can make decisions around our strategies and whether we like the approach of how we're running those things. It's actually a very simple concept like that. And today we can't do that. You get financial data in a certain way. You might get operational data in another way. And those things don't come together. With this partnership, we're putting that together.
And so this is all about putting a dollar figure, establishing costs for things like HVAC or unoccupied space. Is that kind of the way I should think about this?
Yeah, that's an example of how you can think about it for sure. I mean, energy consumption, your utility bill, you probably don't pay attention to it because you don't really have strategies to actually impact it. I think we believe that the first step is visibility. Once you have visibility, you can tie it to the drivers, and then you can do something about those drivers. And what's enabling us to do that now is bringing Honeywell Forge, which is really good. And we think we've got some secret sauce around how we can pull data out of buildings. It doesn't even have to be a Honeywell building. We can work with any OEM. We can pull that data in a very cost-effective way. And so that's enabling the tie-up with financial data within a customer to provide all of these insights.
So I'm going to push on this idea of financial data a little bit because I feel like if I look forward into the future, I see that we can use IoT to really understand all of this data and analyze it and derive these great insights from it. But if we optimize only for financials, I feel like we would be missing a great opportunity to do things like energy conservation, or in the case of COVID-19, maybe focus on employee health. So is this limited to finance, or can we look at this partnership as helping us optimize for other things as well?
It absolutely can optimize for other things. And maybe my terminology of financial data is very limiting. I really mean business data. And so you take, for example, sustainability is an important goal for almost every company now. And in the past, people would talk about their carbon footprint, and that sounds great. And, they're working towards reducing that. But now we can tie that to the business result. And so it actually strengthens the case for sustainability. You have a lot more confidence to do certain things to reduce your carbon footprint if you can also see it impact the P&L. So I think that's very positive because it makes the case we can feel good about the environment, but we also can feel good about the P&L.
Yes, that's probably way more important for most businesses. They're like, trees, yay, P&L, 100%. Okay, so let's give me some examples of what this might look like in practice, and maybe take me through a deployment. What does this look like? I assume I've already got Honeywell in my building. Maybe I've already got SAP's ERP systems running. What do I do now to take advantage of this?
You don't need to have Honeywell in the building. It could be any building. And let's say the building, for simplicity's sake, has some sort of building management system. What we provide with Honeywell Forge is that we provide a software appliance that, when connected to a building management system, can very efficiently pull data out of that system. It can enrich the data, and it can normalize it and send that information into the cloud. So we do that, and you can imagine that in a lot of these buildings, you have different protocols, you have different devices, you have different OEMs, and so how do you know what data you're pulling out? So we make that process super simple. In today's world, that would be an IT project, and it would take several months, and you'd have a manual process of tagging all the data. We do all of that through this appliance. Once we have that, we already have embedded models for how we can optimize. And I'll talk a little bit about autonomous control in the case of energy optimization. But we can then optimize the systems within a building, the entire system, and then tie that to the business and financial information that a customer might have within their SAP system. So that's an example of a use case where, say, you want to drive your energy consumption down. It's funny that a lot of people assume that buildings are super sophisticated. Most of the time it's on or it's off, and that's how they regulate the climate. And what we're able to do with energy optimization and autonomous control is we can actually make many micro adjustments, 15-minute intervals or 10-minute intervals. We can make micro adjustments of the system to not just provide a recommendation, but to actually drive optimization of the energy. You can't do that manually.
This sounds good. There are lots of other efforts at play in this area of optimizing your real estate for cost, for comfort, for energy savings, for all kinds of things. I know that I talked to Microsoft, for example, and they're very focused on their digital twin effort. And this idea is they will create a replica of your building, and your facilities management, your security, your employees, all of them can interact with this in a way that works for them. This isn't real yet. I have to clarify that for everyone. This isn't real yet, but this is where they want to go. Then there's also a standard. There's a brand new effort out there to create a standard. It's called IP Bliss. This is the Thread Group and some building management companies that are also trying to take existing building management protocols and wrap them into one standard that hopefully allows people to do kind of what you're talking about. So it feels like a very crowded space. I'd love to understand the value you guys bring, and then maybe how you might play with some of these others or not.
Well, we love to play and partner with many companies, because at the end of the day, we can't do it all. And we want customers to have the opportunity to digitally transform their operations. You mentioned two things, I guess a couple of points. The way that digital twin as a concept, where you have a digital replica of a physical thing, has suffered from, I think, there's always some gap in fidelity between the digital version and the physical version, primarily because the physical version is a living thing. It changes. And then the digital replica effectively comes out of date as soon as it's produced. And I think this is a hard problem to solve. Our approach is a little bit different. We have built into Honeywell Forge what we call an extensible object model. And we think of this as really a data model for our operations world. And it's a way that we can incorporate our know-how, our domain knowledge of how these systems work together into this data model. And so this contains, Honeywell's IP and know-how built over decades of how these systems work. So that's effectively the repository of that. Over time, that's going to get a lot smarter, because we're, as you say, we're in every 1 or 5 commercial buildings in the world. So we have a lot of data that we collect, and we know how these systems perform, and it lives with these structures that I believe are living things. So that's our approach. We're not trying to have a simulated environment that is exactly like the physical. I think that's a very, very hard problem to solve, and I don't think you need to necessarily solve that. What we're trying to do is, if I give you a simple example, if, for example, air is flowing through, say, an air handling unit at a certain velocity, it means it's time to change the air filters. Well, we understand that in Honeywell because we have done many repairs and have managed a lot of these facilities. We can create the rules and the corpus of knowledge for the machine learning algorithm to improve on that. Just one additional point I'd make. You made a second point of there's groups that are trying to standardize, say, building protocols and the like, and I think those are good. I think standardization is always going to help lower the cost. But the way Honeywell Forge works, it doesn't need to have a standard. We're actually an open system, and so we can handle different protocols, whether that's Modbus, IP, BACnet. It doesn't really matter. We can normalize wherever the data is coming from. That's one. The second part is the drivers are hard because different pieces of equipment have different drivers. We can also handle the main OEMs in the world. We can handle the majority of those drivers. And if there isn't one, then we're improving our driver library all the time. So it doesn't really matter to us what is present in the building, who makes it. It doesn't have to be Honeywell. And I think that's the beauty of it is most companies have one of everything. They're not going to have one of only one company. And that was effectively the problem we're trying to solve with Honeywell Forge.
So many silos. I had money on whether or not we would get to BACnet and Modbus in this, and boom, I just paid myself. So this actually gets into a broader trend, which is the OT side, the people who worry about Modbus and BACnet and SCADA and a million other protocols out there. They have a very different life than the IT side. And we talk about this IT-OT convergence, but I'd love to understand from you, one, let's talk about why this is happening. We've kind of covered it very specifically for real estate, but you're from Microsoft. Now you're at Honeywell. What is going on?
It depends on what you mean by IT, OT convergence. I think of it in two ways. One is that there's enormous value in bringing together information that lives in IT systems. And the IT industry has innovated significantly in the last 20 years. You can have HR data, procurement data, all sorts of things. Marry that to actually the doing that happens on the ground, how the machine is operating, how people are working in the factories, in the field. There's still a divide between those two sets of data. And the OT world has a lot to do to catch up, but that data does exist. And so one way to think about convergence is how do we bring those together? Because I think part of how IoT has developed has been a singular focus on, hey, let's just get OT data in an easier way. But I think that has limited value if it's not tied to the business data that's already there. So that's one way that I think about it. The second way that I think about it is that there are a lot of things that we've learned in the IT industry of how certain services and things work, and I'll give you an example of that. But when you take that concept and put it into the OT work, it hits a wall. It hits a physical challenge. An example of that might be VPN. We're very used to VPNing into and remote accessing your desktop, your server, whatever that is. And it's super easy because the machines are high powered. You've got super, high performing computers. It's pretty easy to do that. Suddenly in the OT world, you've got some pretty dumb computers sitting on the edge. They can't handle those things. Cybersecurity is another example. They can't handle the agents that you typically would run on an IT network. And if you start running it on an OT network, you're going to start shutting down production. So there's some physical barriers that you encounter. And so how do we take learnings from IT, understand the constraints that you work on, and come up with better solutions to solve the same problem? Because the same problems exist. It's just you can't just take the IT solution and stick it in the OT world.
True. And I would even argue that there are things in OT that I kind of wish the IT world would get behind, like especially around security practices related to like employees, like the training they give employees around security and safety. I'm like, yeah, I probably could use some don't pick up random USB campaigns, right? Okay. So this type of partnership, how do you build this at a technical level, and how do you get the requisite people on each side working together?
Well, I think the best way to pick the people to work with is, does the combined or the integrated offering, is it distinctive and additive to customers? That's the starting point. If what we're doing together isn't really that differentiated in the market and customers don't find tremendous value, and then it's just a hollow press release. Both of us, the team at SAP and the team at Honeywell, are working very well together because we both believe in the mission. We both believe that we put these things together, and we've tested this, by the way, with our own CFOs in our respective companies, plus a handful of other early adopters, that there's a there, and that's it. It's a significant there. It's not an incremental improvement. So that's one. We both believe in that mission. And so the teams actually work very well together. And so we're on a mad dash to try and get these solutions out to the market. Our engineering teams are engaged almost daily. And we're also building a business plan to target the customers that would find the most benefit. And we think there's a lot of COVID-driven reasons around business continuity, the drive for productivity, helping our companies get workers back into the office or the workplace, and sustainability, that it felt like real estate operations was a good place to start. At the same time, we're also working with SAP to look at other areas, particularly around the frontline worker. You talked about IT and OT conversion. The frontline worker has a dearth of applications available to them today to be productive and to operate in a safe way. So we're pretty excited by this.
Like you said, you're focused on real estate. How vertically specific should these partnerships be? And I ask because the IT world tends to think, let's do a horizontal platform and it will work everywhere. Whereas once you start getting into the OT world, you realize that, real estate has 6 different protocols that really need to be dealt with and certain use cases that will dictate how something is developed. How vertically specific should this be?
Fair question. I think the industry vertical or the domain has a significant bearing on how we go about solving this problem, because obviously the needs are different. However, the problem is the same. So let me give you an example. If we're trying to solve a problem which might be improve or optimize the operations of X, in the case of a building, X might be reducing my energy consumption, reducing my maintenance costs. X in, say, aviation would be, how do I fly a plane from A to B with a minimum fuel consumption and safely? Those two optimizations. And so while the domain-specific need of the customers are different, the building blocks of how we might solve that problem have a lot of things in common.
It's kind of like the 80-20 rule, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay. Q, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.